Hi and welcome to the Financial Fox. Today we are exploring the unprecedented rise of mobile payment systems in India, one of the biggest markets in the world, and also the role of digital currencies. To understand this better, we have Mr. Byas Nambisan, CEO of Ezetap. Ezetap is one of the most widely used digital payment systems in India and has the unique ability to let businesses accept any mode of payments, anywhere, through any device, along with any banking partner of the customer choice. Hi and welcome, Byas. How are you?
Hi, Stefania. It's good to be chatting with you.
Fantastic. So India is rapidly evolving into a digital giant, basically. And one of the major trends shaping the digital payment scenes in India is the rising smartphone penetration, but also the internet access. What I would like to understand is, how has your experience been witnessing that as the CEO of Ezetap, which is one of the pioneers in the mobile market segment in India?
Right. You know, the thing that's amazing about India is, how much the government is pushing and aligned on digitization. And it isn't just about digitization of payments. They have set up the infrastructure, the India stack, which looks at digital identity, digital payments, digitization of records, digitization of transactions and interaction with the government. Right? So it's a very holistic plan and framework which they have built, largely already completely built, and there's enhancing as they go on. So ever since I got engaged, since 2014, it has just blown my mind how India has been able to leapfrog where it was and become one of the leaders in the space, and the government leading that. And the private sector from India has always had, good leadership in the technology space, especially in the software side. But it's amazing to see that happen even on the government side.
So when the government started to support and integrate digital payments, if you can give us, an overview of that.
Yeah, I think the digitization, the digital payment journey actually started with the digital identity creation journey, way back with creation of Aadhaar. India before that didn't have the US equivalent of a social security card or a single means of identifying. So when they created the software and they tapped the best people from across the industry, and this was back, I think, in 2007-8 timeframe. I was again in India at that point, and I saw the journey to create this digital identity, and then from that evolved, digital payments and creating UPI and pushing payments and democratizing payments and pushing to make access to digital payments much more common. When we started, when Ezetap started in 2011-12, there was hardly 3, 4, 500,000 card acceptance terminals across the country, which is a very low ratio. I think in the US there's probably 25 terminals for every 1,000 people. That's a data point I saw several years ago. It's probably a little bit more there now, and India was very far behind, and so there was a lot of push from the government to drive digitization, acceptance of digital payment, expand payment acceptance across the industry. So and that opened up the opportunities for both banks and payment players like us to step in and offer, various solutions that were cost effective, could easily be scaled, could reach out to the furthest corners of the country.
Before we go into a little bit more, for example, into the payment details, so talking about KYC rules and practices, I just would like for you to give a little bit more background of yourself and the work that you've been doing with the government, which you just mentioned before. I think will be important for our viewers to understand a little bit more about that.
Sure. just, me personally, I grew up in India as a kid, but left India, did my higher studies in engineering, lived in the US from 1990, worked at Intel Corporation for 20 years. And then this is my, second time back in India since I left in 90. First time was with Intel, and now, as part of the startup. And Ezetap, when the government wanted to expand payment acceptance, one of the challenges was, could we make payment acceptance affordable and scalable at the mobile level? And we started with mobile because there was a lot of instances where there is service done either by a delivery agent or by somebody coming to visit your home and perform a service that is mobile. And there wasn't a very cost-effective solution for such agents or companies or individuals to accept payments digitally in card form at that point. And the opportunity was then to actually disrupt that market, develop low-cost solutions, MPOS solutions, and enable scaling and expansion. So we were the first to design, build our own. So the need of the hour was to have a device that cost less than $50, and there was nothing available at that point. So we designed and manufactured our own devices in India and priced it below 50 to enable scaling and adoption at that price point. And that worked very well, and the market soon followed. And then the Chinese manufacturers all got in and kept the price, they build in large volumes, then kept the price going down. And so now, what was $50 5 years ago is half of that today, right? So it's driving the cost down. And that enabled payment acceptance now to go to remote locations in much lower cost to people who were much more value sensitive.
Wow, that's a pretty impressive journey. So let's go back to payments. How about KYC rules and practices? I mean, how that is managed, and also what are the advantages of the new unified payment interface that you mentioned earlier on?
Okay, so look, the KYC, the rules are, now that India has created a digital identity, I think we're still trying to figure out how to enable seamless access to that digital identity, but in a protected manner that protects protects the individual's privacy and rights to their identity. I don't think we've come to the final solution. So, for example, one of the pain points today is I would like to be able, me and my partners in the space would like to be able to offer instant credit to somebody who walks into a store and wants to buy something. Is there a way to instantly give them credit? And in order to do that, we would need to use instant KYC. And we haven't quite gotten there yet. I think the underpinning for digital identity and Aadhaar as the basis for KYC exists. I think we're still grappling with, who should have access to it? Is it just the banks? Is it just registered players? Or should payment facilitators like us or credit players be allowed to have access to this data? And what are the controls around this? So I don't think that has, fully happened yet, but it's work in process. There was, until a few months ago, until about a year ago, the notion was, hey, we could use Aadhaar for instant KYC, easy KYC. And then the government said, no, wait a sec, everybody can't just use it. We got to look at all the privacy issues and security issues around that. We're going to restrict it to these few players. That, again, changed the rules of the game. The credit companies had to go back and adapt to the new rules. And I suspect the rules will change again. And I think there's more to be done in the KYC space.
Is the government or is the private sector that is actually handling these digital identities?
Government.
Oh, the government. Okay.
It is the government. Yeah,
but I mean, that's great, basically,
yeah.
because, you know, if it comes from the government, you know, the opportunity of mass adoption is going to be more straightforward and more natural.
Absolutely. And in fact, I want to say all billion people, over 1 billion people in India have now digital identity online, right? So that has been a huge, massive, successful effort. And I think the government is even offering that software stack to other countries who would like to go down the same path. You asked also about UPI, you know, how does UPI fit in all of this? And I think of UPI, to me, the closest parallel was, it was like sort of like PayPal, except it was, you know, open source, and, you know, anybody could use it. And PayPal would maybe charge you 2.5% to 4% for a transaction, and this was mostly free for lower cost transactions, and at the most it was, you know, less than 1%, you know, 0.65 to 0.9%, and that's even been capped at that.
Yeah.
So now this enables peer-to-peer, very easy peer-to-peer money transfer, and because it's an open standard, many applications can use it. Your bank application can run on UPI. Google Pay runs on UPI. WhatsApp will run on UPI. The mobile wallets also use UPI. So it's become a very interoperable standard for us to use.
But Byas, UPI is going to be just basically a system that you are going to be using within India, or is actually going to target international market as well as domestic?
Yes.
Because
I think it's a great question. You know, so I think it's going to be international. In fact, we almost launched it internationally last 2 quarters ago. We ran into a little bit of we needed some more clarification on the rules and regulation, and I think we will launch again in a few months. But, you know, there's 2 sort of models for using UPI internationally. The first one is, hey, Indians travel abroad a lot. So imagine you're an Indian traveling abroad, and, you know, you're in Dubai, the Mall of Dubai, and the Mall of the Emirates, and you walk into a store. You could scan a QR code using your Indian bank app and just pay with UPI right there, right? So this is sort of like Alipay going with the Chinese travelers expanding with Chinese travelers across the world. But this is using an Indian payment instrument and taking it along, you know, anywhere in the world where Indians are traveling and want to make payments using their home bank application.
But do you think that then you will need some kind of like cooperation or partnership with a international company?
We will need a partnership with an international bank. So, you know, we for example, we're partnered in Dubai with Mashreq Bank. Yeah. Right. And so for us to launch UPI at a Mashreq Bank merchant is very simple. Okay. We can turn on Mashreq Bank merchant, and not just us, and others like us could, you know, have tie-ups with international banks, do the local acquiring, offer a solution to a foreign merchant to enable the foreign merchant to accept UPI payments. Okay. That's really, really interesting. And why did you mention Dubai? Is that because this is where you are starting to have the conversation? Well, we are personally starting our conversation there now, but I mentioned Dubai because, you know, you look at the big markets for Indian travelers. You know, obviously U.S. is one. Southeast Asia is another. Dubai is also a big market, you know, as is the UK. But there's also, you know, I told UPI has 2 uses. One is for Indian travelers, you know, traveling abroad to make payments using UPI. There's another use case, which is Indians living abroad remit money back home, and you know, remittance. In remittance, and they, you know, send $7 billion a year or so. It's a very large number. Yeah,
I agree with you on that because personally I have this experience in Italy, so I know lots of Indians, they just go abroad and there is this issue about remittance, which...
Correct. And so imagine a use case where, I'm a worker living in Italy and, I get a call one day saying, hey, mom, we have flooding in our house and the roof's leaking, son, can you send some money? And now with UPI and, if we enable international UPI, it's middle of the night, so banks are not open or banks will take a couple of days to do the transfer. I could walk into a nearby merchant and if they were UPI enabled, I could just type in my mom's UPI handle, which would be mom at Axis Bank, whatever, something at Axis Bank, if Axis Bank is her bank, and I can send money instantly.
Yeah, that's amazing because it can really benefit the society. Now, coming back to this, I mean, India is a country with a really big population. What role do digital payment play in financial inclusion?
Look, I think the first thing was, part of financial inclusion is making money accessible easily to everyone. And it wasn't just cash as in currency available, but also the benefits given by the government easily accessible. The problem before digitization was there were always efforts to, distribute benefits to the population, but there was always a toll tax. It wasn't easily accessible to everyone, particularly the poorest, who need the benefits the most. They probably had to go to a government office and say, okay, hey, I deserve these benefits, or I should be getting these benefits, and somebody will probably say, yeah, you want it today, you have to pay me so much to get this money, etc. Right? So there's friction in there. So I think the government has done a fantastic job of digitizing this with the hope that that will sort of eliminate a lot of these roadblocks and make money accessible to the furthest corners of the population much more seamlessly.
And when this process of demonetization, and start and the fintech industry begin to prosper?
Look, I think the fintech, to me, they were different. I think the fintech industry was already prospering even before demonetization, right? There was already growth and expansion prior to demonetization, but demonetization it had its good and bads, and there are experts who will tell you whether bad is more than the good, etc. I don't want to get into that, but I think it definitely had an effect of many more people getting comfortable with digital payments, many more people getting comfortable even using their debit cards. I have family members, older aunts who, they had debit cards, but they were locked up in a safe somewhere, never used, right? And the demonetization caused them to now open the safe and bring that debit card out and actually start using it. And after demonetization, sort of, 6 months later, cash came back into the economy, but the debit card, I think, stayed in the wallet now.
Yeah.
Right? So we saw a period in which it was, almost 100% digital transactions, or a huge spike in digital transactions. And then that went down once cash came back, and it came back in a big way. But I think it broke a lot of habits. It caused people to accept digital payments, much more easily.
So basically, you saw a big increase in transaction in the first 3 months of demonetization, as more people obviously embrace the digital transaction. What's happened after?
Well, we saw a big decline.
It carry on the same, or
No, it didn't. It dropped dramatically. Okay, so it was a peak. It went up, and then cash came back into the system, and it dropped. But at the end, the average level of digital transactions was still higher than what it was at the start of demonetization, right? It wasn't as high as the peak, but it was still above. And what it did was, after demonetization, digital transactions continued to grow like this. It was growing exponentially. People started using UPI. UPI came out, and there's a lot more use for UPI. People became comfortable at all levels with using some form of digital transaction. Initially it was the wallets, the Paytms, phone pays, etc. Now it became UPI. So now people are using Google Pay, UPI, and the use cases, is ample. Right outside my office, breakfast is, I have a place that serves fantastic breakfast for about 30 rupees, which is, less than 50 cents. But 10 rupee notes are never dispensed by an ATM. I never get, 10 rupee notes. It's hard for me to pay with that. So it's much easier for me to just type in the person's, the merchant's phone number or the QR code they have on the wall. I scan it, I pay it, and I pay. And I see that happening at all levels.
Yeah.
So that has been fantastic.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Something that I'm quite interested in is about the internet network that obviously we mentioned is rapid expansion, and now is expected to continue with the 5G started to be introduced in most parts of India. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be really a game changer for the adoption of digital payments. What the future is going to look like?
I think so. I think even just the journey so far has been, fairly fantastic in just internet access, and especially 3G, 4G internet access. The cellular rates in India are, I want to say the lowest in the world. Maybe there's some places that are lower, but honestly, the prices here are incredibly low. So it's become widespread, easily available access to the internet through your mobile phone. And that's just across the country. And then mobile phone prices itself have gone down, and you can get a smartphone for less than $50 today. Wow.
And that is not just in the capitals. I mean, that in the urban centers. That is also in the countryside and across the whole country.
Absolutely. It's across the whole country. In fact, there are 200 million, I think that I just looked up some reports. There are about 500 million Indians who are defined as regular users, of whom about 300 are in the urban India and 200 are in the rural India.
Fantastic.
And that's a big significant chunk of Indian population.
Yeah, that's definitely a big number. Another thing, social media. So India is the biggest market of WhatsApp, which is one of the most powerful social media platforms worldwide. What role does social media play in India, and how do you think it can advance digital payments and help in their integration?
I think so. I see social media in many forms, whether it's WhatsApp or TikTok or Facebook. Others have huge, reach. And there's a lot of people using, a lot of people connecting, staying connected and using it for good and using it for not so good. But they're comfortable using that and comfortable being on that digital platform. At the same time, more and more people are also are comfortable making digital payments. I think the supposition is that once digital payments are available on platforms that they're already comfortable being on, maybe all of the payments will go there. I'm not so sure whether that will happen or not. I think there will be a lot of people who will pay on WhatsApp, who are on WhatsApp, who will use WhatsApp to pay. Yeah. But others, will say, I'm going to continue to make my payments through my favorite wallet, whether it's PhonePe, Paytm or Google Pay, etc. Right? So I'm not sure that it'll all move onto let's say WhatsApp. And there's several reasons, and one of the friction points, for example, is a lot of these payments are connected to your mobile number, which is connected to your bank account.
Yeah.
A lot of people in India have multiple mobile numbers, and the mobile number on which they do social media interaction may not be the same as the mobile number on which they do their banking.
Yes, I wanted to pick up on this one because we mentioned before financial inclusion, which is just one aspect, but now what you are saying is basically saying that digital payments are in a way also promoting small entrepreneurships, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, absolutely. Right? Small entrepreneurship, in small entrepreneurship for these micro service agents, my local gardener who comes, does the garden for a whole bunch of homes near here. Previously, the problem used to be collection. They had to have to go back and, wait for the homeowner to come back, and did the homeowner actually have the change to give them, and they might say, no, I don't have change today, come back tomorrow. So collection is a friction. Now with UPI and even digital banking, they say, okay, you know what, just transfer it to my account. Here's, so collection becomes easier. So when collection is easier, they have access to money that enables and fuels their growth.
Yeah. Let's bring in something a bit controversial, let's say, cryptocurrency. Right.
Okay.
So obviously, it has been said they've got a key role in the new digital economy because they are empowering people, they are taking over control from the governments. But we know that the situation in India is not really so straightforward for different reasons. Regulation sometimes is an incomplete understanding of the crypto space from the government, and sometimes they are just scared, of losing control from, such a decentralized technology. What is your insight on this, and what do you think is actually the potential that crypto could bring to India, if there is one?
Honestly, my take on this is limited, but let me tell you this. India has actually banned cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah.
So I don't even see it coming in the next few years. And if I just step back and say, what does India, the government, want to do? And what the government wants to do is sort of democratize access to payments instruments in a broad way, right? And I think it has several tools already at its disposal to do that. I think the government also then wants to have a certain amount of control over these payment instruments. Which is why they are insisting that all transactions and the data needs to be in India and not outside. So data residency is an issue. I'm not sure that the government will see a compelling need to allow cryptocurrency.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Back to payment, obviously, is expected. Most are expected to come from users at the physical point of sales. So the point of sales, P2M payments, will form one of the largest use cases for digital payments. Do you agree with this? And if yes, why?
Yes, I will say it's not just points of payments. To me, it's points of service. And it's a little different in that, service point could be the place where you go to get your tax receipt. So today, one of the things Ezetap does is we work across the country with the government in enabling digital payments for, anywhere from, police departments using us to, collect for police fines and, tickets. So you can instantly pay. If you get a traffic ticket, you can pay there. Or you go to to a government department and you want to pay your property tax, you can do that digitally, right? So that expansion is happening at not just at the city level, but even at the suburban and rural level across the country. So there are more and more instances of places where service or an interaction between an agent and the consumer was happening previously with either just cash or a deferred payment, which is you pay later. Now we're enabling instant payment, instant completion of that service with digital acceptance.
Okay, so it's basically easier service transaction, and say, but also a better experience that per customer can have.
Exactly, right. And it's not just it's easier for the customer, but it's easier for the merchant as well, the ability to reconcile all of the payments and transactions. One of our largest customers, who is the largest telecom operator in India, their problem previously used to be at the end of every day, they had to manually reconcile all of the payments across their thousands of stores in India. And they had a whole department dedicated just calling up each store and saying, hey, please complete the reconciliation of all your payments so that we can update our service systems, and all of the customers will know how much balance they have, and their accounts are updated at the end of the day. And when they went digital with us, we enable all of that instantaneously. So they didn't need all of that manual intervention. Anytime a payment happened, we were integrated into their enterprise system, instantly updated their service system, their finance system, their customer management system, right? Everything.
How Ezetap is differentiating itself from the competition?
So that is actually one of the examples of where we're differentiating. Is we've built a solution that is future-proofs the merchant, gives them complete integration, because a merchant has to integrate just once into our solution. And after that, any change that happens, when UPI happened, our merchants didn't need to do anything. There was 0 lines of code that they needed to write, right? It was a config option. We enable that and say, okay, hey, tomorrow when your agents turn on their devices, they'll have a new payment acceptance choice in there. Right. We may need to do some training for them, but from a software system, that nothing needed to be done. We enabled the merchant to get a complete picture, holistic picture, full reconciliation of all the payments that are being done across their different stores, across different instruments, everything instantaneously.
And what is the level of security?
It's fully certified. These are standards. The thing in payments these are known standards across the world. Our devices are all globally certified. As we have regular audits with whether it's the banks or Master, Visa. They have this set of requirements. So that's the level of security is pretty high, and we have got to constantly work at it, because there's also smart people always looking to figure out how to break that. So you have to just stay one step ahead of them, constantly be looking. You have to be paranoid.
Yes, correct. That's a good word, actually. You have to be paranoid. But I think it's not just in payment, it's in technology, and it's everywhere. Always be paranoid. So just to wrap it up, what are the future plans for Ezetap and the strategic role it is planning to play in India and internationally? Can you share some?
Sure. So some of the things, I think in India, there are three sort of large vectors along which we are growing. One is expanding with the government and driving expansion into rural areas to expand digital payment acceptance across the country. And that's, when I say government, that's a broad spectrum. It's tax, it's utility bills, it's police, it's transportation, it's public benefits distribution system. So we're working across the country. We're in the remotest locations. We're in Ladakh. We're in Andamans. So we're expanding everywhere. The second vector is in retail, and India's a big population, and there is growth happening not only in the tier 1 cities, but in tier 2, tier 3 cities, where there are stores that are becoming more modern, more organized, more structured. And we're working with them and, reaching out and helping them get, fully integrated solutions that give them better merchant experience, better consumer experience. And then there's the long tail merchants, the millions of smaller mom and pop stores who are very value conscious, but want, payment acceptance at a very low value point. And we work with our bank partners, and we have some innovations here to really drive down cost, to reach and drive access across the country in that space. So that's our approach in India. And then outside India, right now we're in the Middle East, and we're taking some of the same value proposition to the Middle East, but then we also want to enable the cross-border proliferation of UPI.
Yeah, I mean, I believe Europe is also a big market for India.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, you have got lots of things on the table, lots of things cooking, and it sounds a really ambitious plan. I look forward to talk to you again soon on, on the next and the next achievement and progress. So thank you very much for today, and I will speak to you very soon, Byas. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks.
Stefania.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is everything from the Financial Fox. Thank you very much for watching it, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more updates, news, and amazing interviews.